Welcome back to Briggs on Books, our international talk show where we talk to authors from all over the world about their books, their process, how'd they finish writing a book. That's what most of us want to know. How'd you get it published? We just finished with an author from Scotland. That's always exciting. Now we're going to move over to California, San Diego, California. Look at this book. Maybe this could be your next book. Are you trying to pick your next book? Let's see. Long Enough to Love You. Long Enough to Love You. I think it's the newest book by our guest who happens to be here through the miracle of Zoom, Kirsten Pursell. Welcome, Kirsten.
Hi, thank you for having me.
By the way, people, how do you pick your next book? People always ask me because I read so many books. If a book gets some notoriety and some notice and some awards, it just helps me. And I understand this book is getting some notice.
Yeah, it really has done not surprisingly well, but it's done well. I entered some contests, and in the category of women's divorce fiction, contemporary romance, just women's fiction, it seems to resonate with the readers in those contests, but also in general with readers. It's a pretty emotional journey, but it's also, about second chances, starting over. And I think that for women in their 50s, I call it a coming of middle age story, right? That sometimes we make decisions later in life and we just don't roll over and die. We want second chances. And this book really explores that. And I think that has resonated hugely with readers.
Now, it's a novel with a protagonist, etc.?
It is a novel with a protagonist. Jen is a 50-something-year-old woman who feels like a donut. She's whole on the outside but empty in the middle, and she basically goes through a journey of unpacking her marriage and should she stay in it, and along the way stumbles upon some old diaries and had forgotten about a first love and is reminded of that through these diaries and ends up going on a journey of reconnecting with her first love, which kind of throws her for a loop. It's unexpected, and it makes her challenge a lot of things about herself and societal norms about starting over in your 50s.
Interesting, when I was a kid in the 1960s, there was barely any divorce, and it was very taboo and stigmatized. But now, half the people are divorced?
I feel like that's been the stat for a really long time. And when I was actually writing this book, I was in my own brain going, and I think that's why it's so real, is I was trying to figure out, do I belong in this marriage anymore? And ultimately, I did make the decision to walk away from that marriage, and not because anything was horrible or bad. I think some marriages run their course. And unlike in the 60s, right, we at least now have the power and the courage and the ability to make those kinds of decisions.
And it's become destigmatized.
I think so, yeah. And I think there's this really big trend right now, what they call the gray divorce, right? Of women, men divorcing when they are in their 50s. And I say 50s because I think 40s is still really young. But, a lot of people have been married a long time in their 40s as well. Yeah,
I like books that show people that, you're not the only one out there. This is happening to other people, and other people are going through the things you're going through, and especially with a strong woman character, I like those kind of books. So,
yeah, I hope I achieved that, and that I got a lot of feedback from readers saying, "Oh my God, you articulated what I couldn't say."
That's good. That's great. Yeah, if you think you wrote it for only women, I'm going to read this book too. So men like these books.
You know what? One of my first readers, my high school English teacher, we connected a few years ago too, and he's kind of been my go-to reader. And he's like, this book isn't just for women. There's men that go through this stuff. And I'm like, really? He's like, oh my God, there were so many notes in this book that resonated for me as well.
Wow, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not your first book. You have a whole bunch of them out there. This one particularly caught my eye. Is it the teenage something? Let me see, here it is.
On Becoming Me, Memoir of an 80s Teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the book I wrote right before Long Enough to Love You, and that was kind of a COVID book. I had long been told by people that I should write my memoir. I was a very prolific journaler when I was in high school in the 80s. And the 80s is such an epic decade anyways. And I was a really top athlete, and I had to walk away from the sport because of injuries. And with that came all the horrible emotions that go with who am I without my sport. and I chronicled all that. So my memoir is my diaries and journals and poetry in my words as I wrote them. So it's not a reflective memoir. It is an actual in the moment, like this is what I was experiencing and feeling. There are some anecdotes in there, like, oh my God, I can't believe I lived through that, or I should have died, like aha moments. But it was really cathartic to do.
Yeah. That's amazing that you had all those notes.
It was amazing. And then I found letters that I had as well.
Wow.
And one of my good friends sent me the one she saved for me. So it was a huge collective of just taking all this time from the 80s and what I was going through. But I think what I went through is what a lot of kids go through. And I think a lot of parents don't understand about what their kids are going through. So it was, as someone called it, it was like an exercise in time travel, or a gift to time travel, being able to go back to that time.
That is amazing. Now, I don't know if we're going to have time to go through all these books, but Company Clown, and this other one caught my attention, Harvard, just called Harvard. What is that about?
Harvard it's a love story. It's a romance. The main character's nickname is Harvard. She grew up on a mountain, dreamed of going to Harvard, had that happen. The funny part about that story is I wrote that when one of my daughters was about 10 years old, and she ended up going to Harvard 10 years later.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're not done writing, because I got an advance copy of maybe the cover of your next book, The Scarlet D.
The Scarlet D, I'm super excited. That book will be out in the next few weeks. It's kind of a continuation of the women's divorce theme, but a much softer approach, some almost rom-com-y approach to a woman starting over on the opposite coast with new beginnings. And I'm excited about it. It's a little more fun, not as heavy and deep as...
And I say maybe this will be the cover, but we know the book's coming out. Have you finished writing and put your pencil down? And
I have done it. It's done. I am in the process of doing the final edits, layout edits, and all those kinds of things. But it should be out start of November sometime, next few weeks.
And let me ask you, I always like to ask a little bit about the process. Is you write the book, you decided you're finished, and then what do you send it out to readers? You have people who read it for you and give you feedback?
I do, yes. I have a few people that are my go-to. Tell me what you think. I know they'll be honest with me. They won't just say this is great or that sucks. They're going to give me what I need to know to make the book a better version to release it. So definitely, small group of people.
I always wonder how you track the continuity of a character and who's where and who's done what, so you don't contradict yourself. But I guess readers can help catch those kinds of things.
Exactly, yeah. And that's something I try to be really conscientious of when I write, is to make sure that my timeline fits and that I'm saying things and that it's consistent and fluid throughout the story.
So you get it, you write it, you have some people that you trust read it, and then does it still go to an editor?
Honestly, one of my books has, and there wasn't a whole lot that was really recommended through that. I pretty much self-edit, and then again, I have this group of people that are very... pinpoint, very particular. And I found it works.
I find, even books published by Simon & Schuster, I find little teeny errors in them. So that's just part of it.
All the time.
Yeah, that's great. Anyway, congratulations on, there's bunches of us, literally millions of authors trying to finish their first book. And congratulations, you've done it 5 times. So very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm going to go back to this one now, the Long Enough to Love You, and just give you a chance to say anything about this book or any of your books, or anything you want to say in the world about any subject. I'll give you a minute or two here.
Awesome. Well, Long Enough to Love You was really a labor of heart for me. It was a story I felt I needed to tell. It's a fictional story, but you can't write a story as emotional and deep as Long Enough to Love You if it's not predicated on real emotions. So I think what makes the book so special is that it is so real that I actually had people calling me going, oh my God, did that really happen? Did your mom die? And I'm like, no, my mom didn't die. But it's like it sucked you in early enough that people had a hard time distinguishing between, is this fiction or is this not fiction? And I think to me that says a lot about the book, that it really reached and resonated with people. It is fiction, predicated on real life emotions, and I'm very proud of it. It's my most recent book after taking many years off to raise my family. So
Nice.
I'm happy that it's out here. I'm super excited for the Scarlet D to be out there as well.
What I know they're signaling me. We're out of time. We're out of time. But you're too fascinating. I want to ask you a couple more quick questions. Will there be audiobooks?
Actually, I'm so excited. I just did the first audiobook for Long Enough to Love You. I just didn't really know the right approach to do it, and if I should do it, if there's a market, but people kept asking. And I did through ACX, which is on Audible. There is now an audiobook for Long
Nice.
Enough to Love You.
Very good. And a Kindle. I guess all the formats are out there.
Every book is on Kindle, yes. Long Enough to Love You is across all the different platforms,
Nice.
but the other books are just on Amazon.
I have to tell you this is that when you get older, man, the words on those pages get smaller and smaller. And so I do audiobooks all the time. Every day I'm listening. Everywhere I go, I have an audiobook going. So the gym, the supermarket, wherever. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's such a big growing market, too, for authors to be a part of. And there is a way to do it and make it affordable. So that's good as well.
Oh, there is. Oh, good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Kirsten Pursell. By the way, we have your web address on the screen. What would our viewers find at your website?
They will find information about all my books. They'll find different articles about me, different things about me. They can learn about me as a person, as a writer.
Nice.
But mostly you're going to find information on where to buy my books.
Excellent. Also, Kirsten Pursell on Instagram. Thank you, Kirsten, I hope you come on again and again. You're a fascinating guest.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
And for our viewers, don't go anywhere. We've got another author coming up right after this.